Tonight in Michigan, winter doesn't feel like a season. It feels like a test. A test of what a city will do when the temperature drops fast. And some people have nowhere to go. Before you click away, I want you to picture something simple. An 8-year-old child wakes up on a school morning, but not in a bed. They wake up in the back seat of an old car. The windows are fogged from breathing. The air is so cold it stings the inside of the nose. A parent in the front seat tries to start the engine, just for a few minutes of heat, because the gas tank is almost empty. And heat costs money they don't have. That is not a movie scene. That is a real winter reality for families across Michigan. And this is why, in the coldest weeks, you'll hear a phrase repeated across cities. Code Blue. Code Blue is a cold weather emergency activation. It is a warning that exposure can become life-threatening. It is a call to open warming spaces, extend shelter hours, and bring people inside. But here's the shocking part. Even when the doors open, the crisis does not instantly end. Because homelessness isn't only about weather. It's about the invisible trap that starts long before the first snowflake falls. Welcome to Homeless US. Before we begin, one important note. This video is made to inform, not to exploit. We do not show illegal activity. We do not explain anything in a way that teaches harm. We use respectful language. We focus on people and on the systems that shape what happens to them. Stay until the end, because I'm going to show you 3 things. First, what Code Blue really is and why it's not enough by itself. Second, the math problem that is pushing working people into cars and shelters. And third, the part most people miss, how a winter crisis becomes a 10-year crisis if we don't intervene early. Let's begin where winter hits hardest. The night Michigan turns on Code Blue. When Michigan temperatures dive, cities scramble. In Lansing, Code Blue can trigger extended shelter hours and emergency measures to get people indoors. In Detroit, the city opens temporary standby shelters and respite locations with walk-in access and a hotline to connect people to help. On paper, it sounds straightforward. Cold outside, open doors, people come inside. But reality is more complicated because Code Blue is not a solution. It is a life-saving pause button. It buys time. It buys a night. Sometimes it buys a week. But it cannot fix the real engine underneath. A housing system that many working people can't afford, and a support system that often moves slower than a crisis. So when temperatures drop, you see the same pattern. Phones ring nonstop. Shelters fill. Staff stretch. Churches open extra space. Outreach teams try to find people who are hidden. In vehicles in abandoned buildings, under bridges, behind industrial lots. And some people still don't come in. Not because they want to suffer, but because fear follows them into every building. People worry about theft. People worry about being separated from a partner. People worry about rules they don't understand. People worry about trauma. And trauma is the part of the story that winter exposes. Because winter forces a choice. Sleep outside and risk exposure, or sleep inside and risk panic. Either way, a human being is choosing between danger and danger. Now let's step back, because the cold is not the beginning of this crisis. It's the moment the crisis becomes visible. The numbers people argue about, and the reality they miss. Homelessness gets counted in different ways. One method is the point-in-time count, a snapshot on one night. Another method tracks how many people experience homelessness over a year. That second number is always higher, because it includes everyone who falls into crisis and then exits, and everyone who cycles back in again. In Michigan, statewide reporting has shown tens of thousands of people experiencing homelessness over the course of a year. And on a single winter night, the point-in-time snapshot has shown thousands of people experiencing homelessness at once. Here's why that matters. Because when people argue about numbers, they often miss the truth. Homelessness is not one group of other people. It includes seniors. It includes working adults. It includes families with children. It includes young adults leaving foster care with no safety net. It includes people with disabilities. It includes people who lost a job, got sick, or couldn't survive a rent increase. And winter doesn't care which category you fit into. Cold treats everyone the same. Now, let me introduce you to 3 people. Not their real names, but their stories reflect patterns happening across Michigan right now. Sarah, the working mom in the minivan. Sarah is a single mother near Flint. She wasn't living a glamorous life, but she had a routine, a part-time job, a small apartment, a child in school. Then she got sick, not a dramatic movie illness, just the kind of sickness that forces you to miss work. She missed 3 weeks of income. 3 weeks. That's all it took. Because in many American cities, you can survive a lot, but you cannot survive a gap in rent. Late fees turn into a notice. A notice turns into a court date. A court date turns into an eviction. And suddenly, your home becomes a memory. Sarah, try to find another place. But landlords want deposits. They want stable pay stubs. They want a clean rental history. And once you fall behind once, your rental history becomes a wall. So Sarah and her child moved into their minivan. Every morning, she drove her child to school and smiled like everything was normal. Because parents do that. They protect the child's world. Then she drove to a public restroom to wash up. Then she went to work. Then she drove to a parking lot where she hoped nobody would bother them. At night, she laid the seats back. She piled coats on her child. She kept the engine off as long as she could. And she told herself one sentence on repeat. If my child can still go to school, we're going to be okay. But she wasn't okay. She was terrified. Terrified that the cold would win. Terrified that someone would knock on the window at night. Terrified that her child would get sick again. Terrified that the school would find out and judge her. And that fear is what so many families carry silently. Because family homelessness often doesn't look like tents downtown. It looks like a minivan behind a big box store. It looks like a family rotating couches until the friend runs out of patience. It looks like a child wearing the same hoodie every day because the clean clothes are packed in a bag. It looks invisible until winter makes it impossible to hide. Dorothy, the 70-year-old choosing between heat and food. Dorothy is 70 years old in Detroit. She worked most of her life. She paid taxes. She raised children. She did what society told her was the path to security. And then she retired and the numbers didn't add up. Her fixed income was too small for the current rent market. And every month became a decision tree of survival. Medication or groceries, rent or utilities, heat or food. In the coldest weeks, Dorothy stayed in a cheap motel through seasonal support. But she lived with a timer in her head, because one missed payment meant she would lose the room. And the street, at her age, would not be a hardship. It would be a catastrophe. Dorothy told a volunteer something that should stop a nation in its tracks. I never thought I'd be scared of winter again. Think about that. A 70-year-old woman, after a lifetime of work, is afraid of winter. Not because she dislikes snow, but because she fears not surviving it. That is not only a personal tragedy. That is a system failure. 5. Malik, the young adult aging out with no one to call. Malik is 21. He spent time in foster care. When people imagine foster care, they imagine rescue. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's just a different kind of instability. Malik told us he learned early not to get too attached to anything. Not to people, not to a room, not to a school, because everything could change fast. Then he turned 18, and the world expects you to become an adult overnight. Here's the part that sounds small but matters. When you're 18 with family support, you can fail safely. You can make mistakes and still have a couch, a meal, a person who answers your call. When you're 18 without that support, one mistake can become homelessness, a job that doesn't last, a roommate situation that collapses, a landlord who raises rent, a mental health struggle that goes untreated. Malik didn't end up in a tent downtown. He ended up floating a friend's couch, a car, a late-night fast food restaurant that stays open, a library until closing time. You look fine. That's the danger. Youth homelessness often hides behind a normal face. And when winter hits, the hiding becomes harder. Now, these three stories are different. A mother, a senior, a young adult, but they collide at the same wall. A wall made of numbers. The math problem that pushes people out. In January 2026, Michigan's minimum wage rose to $13.73 an hour. That's an increase. And for many workers, it matters. But here's the brutal reality. In many Michigan cities, a one-bedroom apartment is around $1,000 a month, sometimes more. Now do the math. Full-time work is 40 hours a week. That's about 160 hours a month. At $13.73 an hour, that's roughly $2,100 before taxes. After taxes, a person might take home something like $1,700 to $1,900, depending on deductions and situation. Now subtract rent. If rent is around $1,000, half your income is gone, and that's before utilities, gas, car insurance, phone, food, childcare, medical bills, and the emergency that always arrives at the worst time. So what happens in real life? 1 week of sickness, 1 car repair, 1 unexpected bill, and the rent payment breaks. Then the late fee arrives. Then the stress spikes. Then the work performance drops. Then the hours get cut. Then the family falls behind again. That is how homelessness happens in a modern economy. Not always through a dramatic collapse, but through a slow suffocation. Now combine that with another reality. Michigan has communities where affordable housing supply doesn't match the demand. And when supply is tight, rents rise, deposits rise, and people at the bottom get squeezed first. This is how a working person can become homeless while still working. And if that sounds impossible, listen carefully. Many families do not become homeless because they don't work. They become homeless because their work doesn't pay enough to survive the housing market. Now at winter. Winter is like a spotlight. It forces every weakness to show. A leaky car becomes a freezer. A tent becomes a danger zone. A missed shelter check-in becomes a crisis. And that's why Code Blue exists. But Code Blue reveals another hard truth. Even emergency help can get overwhelmed. 7. When demand grows faster than beds. During cold snaps, shelter demand rises sharply. When Detroit opens standby shelters, people come. When Lansing declares Code Blue, people come. When warming centers activate, people come. But staffing is limited. Beds are limited. Space is limited. So shelters do what they can. Mats on the floor, extended hours, overflow rooms, and the staff, often underpaid and emotionally exhausted, keep going anyway, because this work is not just logistics. It's human survival. But here's what the camera rarely captures. Getting inside for one night is not the same as getting out of homelessness. A person can sleep indoors during Code Blue and still be homeless tomorrow because the exit ramp is long. To exit homelessness, you need documents. You need appointments. You need a case plan. You often need medical or mental health support. You need time. But when you are homeless, time becomes your enemy because survival consumes it. Where do I shower? Where do I do laundry? Where do I charge my phone? Where do I store my belongings? Where do I stay safe? If you spend 3 hours finding a safe place to sleep, you can't spend those 3 hours on paperwork. And the system is made of paperwork. So the person stays stuck, not always from lack of effort, but from lack of stability. Now we need to address the part that people turn into arguments. Encampments. 8. The tent debate and the danger of just move them. Some Michigan cities have increased pressure on encampments. Many residents want parks back, sidewalks clear, safety restored. That desire is real, and it matters. But moving an encampment is not the same as reducing homelessness. If you clear tents without creating housing, you create displacement. You push people into hiding. You separate people from outreach teams who know where they are. You make it harder for them to access services. The crisis doesn't disappear. It scatters. And scattered homelessness is more dangerous. Now there's another turning point that matters nationally. In 2024, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in City of Grants Pass v. Johnson that enforcing public camping bans does not, by itself, violate the Eighth Amendment. That ruling changed the legal landscape, and it intensified debate across the country. Some people heard it as permission to crack down. Some people heard it as a warning that the nation is choosing punishment over housing. But no matter where you stand politically, the question stays the same. If you tell people they can't sleep outside, where do they sleep? Winter does not wait for policy debates. Winter arrives on schedule, which brings us to a controversial idea that Michigan cities have been experimenting with. Temporary micro-housing. 9 Pod City, a bridge or a trap. In Lansing, officials approved a plan to purchase modular mini-homes, often called pods, as transitional housing. Supporters say this is a fast bridge, a door that locks, a heated space, a safer alternative than tents in a snowstorm. Critics say, is this a real path to permanent housing, or a way to hide poverty from public view? That's a fair question, because any temporary solution can become permanent if the system never builds the next step. If pods become the final destination, that's not progress. That's containment. But if pods are a bridge with services, case management, and real housing pathways, they can save lives. In Detroit, there's also a long-running effort to use tiny homes to create stability and a path toward ownership for some people. So Michigan is experimenting, and experiments matter. But experiments won't fix the math problem. You can't pilot program your way out of housing shortage. You need scale. You need affordable units. You need mental health access. You need prevention before families fall. Because the most cost-effective shelter is the one you never need. It's the eviction that never happens. It's the car repair assistance that prevents job loss. It's the short-term rental support that keeps a child in the same school. That is prevention. And prevention is what Michigan will need if it wants to stop this crisis from growing every winter. Now, we can't talk about homelessness without addressing the health spiral, when winter turns small problems into emergencies. In winter, the body burns calories just to stay warm. So hunger becomes more painful. Weakness comes faster. A minor cold becomes dangerous if you can't rest. A small wound becomes infected if you can't keep it clean. A chronic condition becomes a crisis when medication gets lost or stolen. And mental health, already strained, can collapse under constant stress. When you're outdoors, your nervous system stays on alert. Your body learns to never relax. So even when a bed is offered, your body might reject it. Not because you're ungrateful, but because trauma has trained your brain to fear closed spaces, crowds, and unfamiliar rules. That's why homelessness is not only a housing story. It's a public health story. And public health emergencies do not resolve through shame. They resolve through access. Access to care, access to treatment, access to stable housing. Now, if you stay with me this far, here's the most important part. What hope actually looks like. Not the fantasy hope, the real hope. 11. What hope looks like in a Michigan winter. Hope doesn't always look like a miracle. Sometimes it looks like a volunteer handing out wool socks at midnight. Sometimes it looks like a church opening its basement when the wind chill drops. Sometimes it looks like a shelter worker remembering a name and saying, "You're back. I'm glad you're alive." Sometimes it looks like a hotline that answers. A ride to a warming center. A caseworker who helps replace an ID. A landlord who agrees to a payment plan. A program that covers a deposit before a family ends up in a car. Hope looks like community refusal. Refusal to accept that people should freeze. But hope must become policy if it wants to last. Because volunteers cannot carry what a housing system is dropping. Now I want to close by returning to the child in the back seat. That child is learning something right now. They are learning how to survive before they ever get the chance to learn how to dream. And that should haunt every adult watching. Because when children grow up in survival mode, the future changes. School attendance drops. Concentration suffers. Health problems rise. Trauma grows roots. This is why a winter crisis becomes a 10-year crisis. If Michigan wants to stop the next wave, it has to protect children today. Not with speeches, with housing, with prevention, with a safety net that catches people before the fall becomes fatal. 12. The final question. Michigan is not a poor place. It has industry, universities, technology, wealth. So the question isn't whether Michigan can do better. The question is whether we choose to. Because homelessness is not a mystery. It's a result. It's what happens when rent rises faster than income. When affordable housing supply stays behind demand. When mental health care is hard to reach. When low-income workers live one emergency away from collapse. When seniors retire into poverty. When youth age out without a support system. And winter exposes the result. If you've made it to the end, I want you to do something simple. Don't turn this into entertainment. Turn it into awareness. Leave a respectful comment. What's happening in housing and rent where you live? Share this video so the algorithm doesn't bury these stories under vacation content. And if you can, support local outreach and shelter organizations in your area, especially during winter activations. Even small actions matter. Socks, gloves, hygiene kits, blankets, donations, volunteering, advocacy. Because no one should have to prove they deserve warmth. This is Homeless US. We document what others walk past, and we do it with dignity.